Is Justin Fields going to get traded before the NFL trade deadline? My name is Harrison Graham. The reality is probably not, but Jeff Howe of The Athletic proposed a few trade ideas, and there was an interesting one between the Bears and Falcons, which would send Fields to Atlanta. Now, let's get a couple of things straight. Number one, midseason quarterback trades are very rare, especially now that Justin Fields is dealing with an injury, and we don't really know the complete extent of that as we're filming this video. The NFL trade deadline is just days away, so I don't know how you even navigate that of this possibility even falling into place. So let's just mention that right off the bat. But let's get to the trade idea in just a second from The Athletic, because I do think it's an interesting one, as they proposed sending Justin Fields back to Atlanta, which, by the way, was where he grew up. He committed to Georgia, transferred to Ohio State. We all know the story. But here was the idea from The Athletic. Bears get a second-round pick this year, and this upcoming draft, I should say, a 2025 conditional third-round pick, and then Taylor Heinicke just to help fill out the QB room. I don't really care if he's in the trade or not, to be frank. I don't think that changes it one way or the other. View it second and a third for Justin Fields. Now, remember, this is very unlikely. Midseason trades don't happen, especially for starting caliber quarterbacks, and Justin Fields has a hand injury right now, so I'm not sure if it would happen. The reason I wouldn't completely dismiss it, at least from Atlanta's side of things, is I don't think it would be a play for them just for this year. I think it would be for 2024 as well to evaluate him and beyond potentially. And look, I think Justin Fields has done some good things this year. 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks. He had that 2-game stretch where he threw 8 touchdown passes. It's been up and down, but I think we have seen progress. The problem is it's been very hit and miss, right? Like the first 3 weeks, it was a slow start. I kind of threw the Chiefs game out the window because that was the Allen Williams week. That whole thing was a mess. It was just bad. He was great against Denver and Washington, was not great against Minnesota. Then he got injured in that game. I also think the game plans in the games that he hasn't played well, not to just completely put it on coaching, have not been sound. I don't think they've been great. So it's definitely not all on Fields, but the reality is he's played 2 really good games out of 6 this year. The Bears are in a tricky spot because we have seen signs of growth this year. And remember what Ryan Poles said before this year. I just want him to improve. I think he's improved. But has he improved to the point where you're Ryan Poles and you're currently sitting with the top 2 picks in the draft that you're not going to draft a quarterback? I don't know the answer to that for sure, but if I had to guess, if the season ended today and he had the top 2 picks in the draft, he's probably drafting a quarterback number 1 overall. So do you consider a trade? Is that a possibility, whether it's now or in the offseason? Obviously, again, right now it's very tricky to figure out, but that is a fascinating discussion that Jeff Howe had and what we're reacting to. Will Justin Fields be the Bears' Week 1 starter next season? I'm curious what you guys think. Not what you want. What do you think is going to happen? Because I think the answer is probably no. That's not necessarily what I want, but I think it's probably no. Pin comment on today's show, yes or no, will Fields be the starter in Week 1 of next season? So Jeff Howe, here's what he had to say on the Bears' reasoning of why this trade could make sense. He says the Bears are tracking toward the number 1 pick of the draft, either with their own selection or from the Panthers with that pick. So they're in play for Caleb Williams or Drake May. With major changes likely on the horizon again, it might be best to maximize Fields' value. Again, the Bears currently hold the top 2 picks in the draft. Justin Fields will be entering year 4 next year. So the opportunity to reset the QB contract timeline and just for Ryan Poles to pick his own guy, I would have to think Ryan Poles would be appealed by that. I just do, because the other idea that's been out there is trade back from 1 or 2, get a bunch of capital, build out this roster, which I am intrigued with, to be honest. And then, if Fields still isn't the guy after next year, then draft a quarterback. Well, the only problem with that is if the Bears are bad again in year 3 of Ryan Poles, he may not get a year 4, so he may go an entire GM stint without picking his own quarterback. So is he going to risk that? That seems pretty unlikely if I just was a betting man. Now, am I intrigued by that, of loading up on offense and defensive linemen with those picks by trading down, getting capital, getting players? Yeah, I am. But do I think it's the most likely scenario at this point in time? No, I don't. I think if you get the number 1 pick, you're probably drafting Caleb Williams. All right, today's show, presented by Prize Picks. Lots more to discuss with this Fields trade idea and situation, but listen, Prize Picks, it's just fun, man. Daily fantasy sports, and what I like about Prize Picks is it's very easy. There's nothing tricky about it, unlike this Bears QB situation. The way it works is simple. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, if you do a 2-player entry, you win 3 times your money. If you do a 6-player entry, you can win 25 times your money. This pick 3 I've got for this weekend is for 5 times your money, so 10 to win 50, 20 to win 100, etc. Najee Harris has been struggling. I took the less on rushing yards for him. I took more on DJ Moore receiving yards. I think he hits that threshold this week, even with Tyson Bagent. And then I think Tua and the Dolphins could struggle against Philadelphia, so I'm going less on the passing yards for him. Get started today. You don't have to play against pros. You don't have to play against sharks. It's just you against the projections. That's what I like most about Prize Picks. You don't have to worry about other players playing on the app. It's just you versus the stats. Get started today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. That's PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS. That code CLNS gets you a deposit match up to $100. All right, you compare Caleb Williams and Drake May, who are the 2 big names who, are likely going to go number 1 and number 2 overall, barring a significant shift. And both are good prospects. I mean, people think Caleb Williams is generational. I know he struggled against Notre Dame, but he's mobile. He's got a rocket arm. He's great off platform. He's very cocky, almost a little too much for me, but if you can back it up, that's all good in my book. Drake May, 6'5", 220, the rocket arm. He's mobile as well. Both these guys are good prospects. And look, if the Bears have a top 2 pick, I would expect Ryan Poles, at least based on what we know right now, here on October 20th-ish, whenever you're watching this video, I think that he would draft one of these 2 guys. Now, if the Bears are picking 4th, I don't know if they would do that. But with Carolina struggling, with the Bears struggling, there's a damn good chance they're going to be in the top 2. And hell, they might have the top 2 picks. That's how it currently sits. So that's just what I think Ryan Poles would do. I'm not saying necessarily I would do it. I see both sides of it. I see the appeal of Caleb Williams. Like he's Hollywood. He's dynamite. He talks the talk, but typically he walks the walk as well. And he would be entering year 1 of a rookie contract, not year 4 like Justin Fields, where even if he does ball out, then you got to pay him $40-50 million per year, which you'd be cool with if you're sure about, but then the rest of that roster, which isn't up to par yet, it becomes harder to build a football team. So I understand if Poles wants to reset here, and if they do get a top 2 pick, I think he probably would. What do you think, or what would you do? Pick a quarterback for next year. Type JF if you just want to keep Justin Fields. Type CW if you want to go with Caleb Williams. If you want Drake May, type DM. I like all these guys, man. Listen, no one's a bigger Justin Fields fan than me. I want him to work in Chicago, but I think with this latest injury and the inconsistent play, it's just you feel like that clock is starting to run out. So let me know, JF, CW, or DM. Jeff Howe from the Falcons' reasoning of why to pull the trigger from their side of things is he says the Falcons were linked to Fields, who's from Kennesaw, Georgia, before the 2021 draft, and he seems like a pretty solid fit for Arthur Smith's offense. Desmond Ridder has been struggling. It might be a lot to ask Fields to step in for Ridder relatively soon, but he could get a jump on the offense and position himself to relieve Ridder if necessary. Assuming the thumb heals, the extra time in the system could better prepare Fields for 2024. And yeah, I think if you're Atlanta, you consider this because A, you're not going to be picking high enough to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, and B, you feel like you've got the pieces that if you plug in Justin Fields with Bijan Robinson, with Kyle Pitts, with Drake London, behind a pretty good offensive line, with a good defense, in a bad division, that's pretty appealing, and he can grow with your football team under Arthur Smith, who's a pretty good offensive coach. So you look back at the trade, you understand the appeal from Atlanta's side. Like, Desmond Ridder is holding them back right now. Justin Fields may not be perfect, but that offense isn't that crazy different schematically than what the Bears do. It's just better. And their offensive line's better. Arthur Smith is a proven offensive mind, so you understand the appeal from them. Would you do this trade? Is a second and a third enough? That's right now, before the deadline. That's essentially the question you got to ask yourself. Type T for trade or P for pass. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't think I'm taking the steal right now, though. I think there's way too much to risk. Number one, if Fields is going to get back and healthy this year, which I do think he's going to play again, I still want to see him play as much as possible this year and get as much of an evaluation as I can. That's number one. And number two, if you trade him and don't get a top 2 pick, like what if you trade him and, Bagent plays just good enough and Carolina gets hot late in the year and you're picking like 4 and 7? Like, then what do you do? Has Bagent shown enough where he's the answer? I mean, I guess maybe. I don't want to, rule anything out for the kid. I'm eager to watch him play, but I think there's way too much risk to trade him right now. And especially now with the injury, I think that just throws a wrench into it as well. Sure, could the value go down? Like maybe that type of deal is available now in the offseason. It's only a second or a third without an extra pick. Maybe. I'm willing to take that risk, though. Now, if a first is on the table, it might be a different discussion. And I love Justin, but that might be a different discussion. But I'm not taking it right now, man. There's too much unknown 6 weeks into the season to make that move. Hit that subscribe button if you want more trade buzz. The NFL trade deadline is just over a week away. We are going to cover all of it and how all the latest rumors and news impact the Bears. So don't miss out on that. Help us grow this channel. We would greatly appreciate it.